Cool. So thank you very much for joining us. It's great to be here. It's awesome to have a group of multiple different software organizations in DoD, as well as some of our industry partners here with us. And honestly, it's been really cool to be out here for the last couple of days, and we're really excited to close out day one and hopefully see some more stuff on day two to bring more of this dialogue together and try and think about how do we bring more good technologies and good partners into DoD. Again, to lead off, I lead our industry engagement at Kessel Run. I think probably the first thing I want to do is just go around the horn and have everyone introduce themselves. And then we'll start at the end and kind of go this way. And just sort of, talk about your organization, what you do, how you work with industry, and then we'll get into a little bit deeper discussion.
I'm Davis Gunter. I'm an active duty captain in the United States Space Force. I'm stationed at LA Air Force Base, where I am the chief of platform for Kobayashi Maru and co-lead for Section 31, which is the government-led organic branch out of Kobayashi Maru. Currently, we are developing the Space Command and Control enterprise system. So right now, I'm in charge of everything underneath the application development. So anywhere from infrastructure, platform, tool chain, and cyber. So we're looking at just getting capability out to the users as quickly as we can, from government-led teams to acquisition to acquiring different software to contracting with government primes.
Awesome. My name is Christina Mappa. I work at Red Hat. I'm an Army account manager, and I work as a part of the Army team. Red Hat and IBM teamed to, you said, to bring solutions to the government, platform, security. We do all that, and we're, my role specifically is to help the Army, but all of the government get to where they need to be in their digital transformation.
And I'm Jason Zuniga. I'm an active duty Army major. I'm currently stationed here at Army Futures Command's Army Software Factory here in Austin. I'm one of the co-directors serving as the Chief Operations Officer. I kind of serve as a bit of a catch-all in the true startup kind of phase that we're in right now. But I was originally an aviation officer, Kiowa pilot in my former lifetime. So it's kind of where I started with agile, if you will, maybe about as close as we can get. But loving it here. Obviously, working hand in hand with Vito Erico as we kind of stand this up here in Austin.
Wade Johnston. I'm currently the Director of Innovation for Class Government. We're predominantly a hardware company. We say we're extreme edge engineering. And so right now, a big focus on edge compute. Prior life, retired about a year ago as a CIO here at Army Futures Command. So good opportunity to come back and see where the software factories come in that last year.
Cool. So I guess just getting into it, I mean, Jason, how do you guys work with industry currently? Do you have examples of kind of some of the things that you've done? I know you work closely with a couple of different industry partners. So what's that experience like? What's been successful, and where do we need to get better as DoD?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, like many organizations, right, we have a lot of different kind of pathways to which we kind of partner or work with industry. So it's, like everything in the government and working with industry, it's not simple always, but we try to make it as streamlined as possible. And one of the ways that we've been pretty successful with that is making sure that we're using those different pathways, right? And so we have obviously traditional contracting methods that we have to utilize. We can also, we tap into the OTA category as often as we can, right, when it comes to specifically contracting requirements out. We're also doing different kind of, levels of involvement with industry partners. And so for us, that's everything, outside of the realm of contracting, right? Not everything necessarily has to be contracted out. And so sometimes that's collaboration opportunities, whether it's coming in for a lunch and learn series, doing design workshops, those different type of activities that allow us to mutually learn from one another and talk about how we can continue to get better, both on the government side as well as the industry side. So we work with some of the, some local organizations, nonprofits, like National Security Innovation Councils, as an example, who has opportunities, and they're tied into the ecosystem to also kind of help identify some of the requirements with us, and also work with other industry organizations in the local ecosystem, in the larger ecosystem regionally, and then kind of nationally. You know, we try to stay tied in as best we can. And what that does for us is you know, we, especially being a younger organization, don't necessarily have all of our requirements right now, but as you stay tied into those different avenues, you can, you know, hear about those different opportunities maybe later on down the line. And so I think that's one of the things that's a little bit successful is, you know, one final example would just be real quickly that, you know, organizations that are working with Air Force partners, maybe on a SIBR right now, right? Down the road, we're not quite ready for that. But as they start to continue to develop and work with them, something that we might be able to bring into the fold.
Awesome. Davis, I don't know if you have other thoughts from the government side.
Yeah, we one of the biggest things that we are leveraging right now is just enablement for our government folks. Being able to transform a lot of our people from project and program managers into product mindsets, and so ensuring that they can lead a product team, not just manage a contract, so that they're not just there leading a project, but they are there on the ground with the users, solving problems, and that's not inherently instilled in us as active duty military and civilians. And so that's one of the biggest things that we look to industry for, just being able to enable us in that. We've seen huge strides. You know, I think as companies start to learn how to navigate working with the DoD and just what our airmen and guardians and sailors need and soldiers, that has matured quite a bit. You know, when we first started out, like Enrique said last time, 5 years ago, we didn't know what this could be. We've kind of gone along this journey, took a few government coders, took a few organic PMs, and said, go figure this thing out. And it was messy. Like, you want to talk about theater, like none of this is pretty. And it is extremely difficult. But industry came alongside us, and they enabled us, and they taught us how to do this thing and what that looked like. And they were learning too. But that's the biggest thing. And then, you know, as far as product goes, but then also on cybersecurity, as much as continuous delivery is a somewhat new thing in the DoD, you know, we had to learn with industry. We had to take the best practices and adapt them and change them. And so what that looks like with as technology continues to mature and cybersecurity continues to increase. So working really closely with cyber companies on how we innovate on, you know, ensuring that we have all the necessary controls and necessary security, because the government doesn't know. We don't have all the answers. We're getting a lot more technical, but you know, we need industry to be able to come alongside us.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we've really tried to build up at Kessel also is having that hybrid acquisition and operations kind of set up, so that the acquisition team is really working closely with the product lines and with the technology leadership within the organization, because to a large extent, to be able to buy technology, you need to understand how it works and where we're going. So yeah, I guess with that, Christina and Wade, I don't know if you have thoughts from the industry side of how that's been going.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys said, that you're working on getting to a place where you can collaborate with industry. You know, we heard on all these panels today that you guys are trying to bring in soldiers, keep it in-house, and have these soldiers turned software developers, which is great. That is where we should be going, but we're here to help too. You know, the industry, we're the experts, and we want to work alongside you to come up with those solutions. Hannah Hunt mentioned on the last panel that, you know, they invested all this money in a 7 to 10 year project, turned out with no outcomes. Turned it inside, they had outcomes within 3 months. We want to be a part of that continuous delivery and shorter turnover time.
Agree completely. As far as you know, the industry engagements, the government has to embrace the industry has expertise. And so one of the things that we're trying to do a lot is come in and do one-day, half-day seminars with organizations, talk through the various technologies, talk through the constraints and limitations of what's real today, what's going to be real in the near term, and so that they can plan ahead for it and not get caught in this do loop of building requirements that are either so far out we're never going to get there, or they're building requirements that we met 5 years ago. And so there's got to be that constant open dialogue between government and industry. Again, understanding there's no promises, no guarantees, but at least let's educate everybody so we're on the same level.
Something that came up in the last panel, and I feel like you probably have some views on it based on your previous experience working for government on the approving side. What are your thoughts on how we improve that within DoD, or how should that process work to streamline how we get software from industry deployed and approved and accredited?
Yeah. So former life as a CIO for AFC was the authorizing official. So the whole RMF process, really it's it's an engagement between the software teams as they're building stuff, or technology teams, having that constant engagement with AOs, making them understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, so that they can make informed decisions. It's also educating the AOs so that they can do that in reciprocity, right? So it's directed, you will take reciprocity. Not everybody does. But I think that's something where, again, as we educate everybody across the board and bring those skill sets up, reciprocity will come better or come quicker. But it's something that DoD is going to have to embrace, is going to have to do, is to be able to turn the things fast as we have to do.
Real quick, reciprocity really, I haven't seen it be done. We share bodies of evidence, security bodies of evidence to other groups, and they can iterate on that and they can get those things to their AOs. But I haven't seen reciprocity happen. And so really it comes down to educating the AOs on a lot of these things. But that takes a lot of time and effort. And then by the time you do that, those AOs leave. And so we're doing that internally with a lot of our organic products. But there are so many, there's so much technology out there that we want to start using, that we need to use. We've had a product sitting out there that we can't use right now, that's going to go into an IL4 environment because we can't get it accredited to be on an unclassified network. And that's insane. I can get something onto a classified network in 60 days, and it takes me almost 2 years to get a commercial product into an IL5 environment. Like that's not right. And so really what that comes down to is leadership. It comes down from the top, being able to change that policy. Do you want your airmen spending more time writing and correcting policy that colonels have just been okay with for decades? Or do you want them just being able to run and go find something out in industry that can solve problems extremely quickly?
And,
If I can just
yeah,
add
go
one
for
thing,
it.
that he's absolutely right. As far as, it's risk management framework. It's not risk mitigation, or negation. And that's where the AOs are going to have to accept and understand the risks that they are accepting, and make those informed decisions, and not just try and, secure everything away.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things that's come about is Kessel Run and some of these other organizations is that notion of a continuing ATO. And so for industry who may not be familiar, to be able to get accredited and run on a government system, you need authority to operate. And that generally goes through a fairly complex risk management process to be able to get approved at the end of the day by someone like Wade used to be. And so I think that there is a very clear tension there, because obviously these critical systems. And so what is that right balance? I mean, what do you think that future construct looks like? Is continuous ATO way? Is it some hybrid? Do we need more authorizing officials to work more closely with organizations? What is that future framework?
Yeah, so I think RMF as we know it today is probably not the right way. And there are some really good efforts underway to revamp that and move it forward. Personal experience of taking what Kessel Run had done, took all that information, we rolled it into our package, hours and hours sitting down with the VMware team, understanding everything so that we could get the software factory and ATO to get going. Was it perfect? No. Was it good enough to get them going and to learn and to continue to iterate on the package? Absolutely. And I think that shows something that as we go forward, it's got to be that understanding of, hey, we're not going to get it right the first time, but as long as we continue to improve it, we're mitigating.
Yeah, and I think that's been one of the successes of these software efforts, is that acceptance. There has been more acceptance over risk and more willingness to accept, some of these things. And I guess getting back into the broader picture of how these organizations, how we work together. How do you guys set yourselves up and differentiate differentiate yourselves. So how is the Army Software Factory different from Section 31? Obviously, the approaches are a little bit different. The mission sets are a little bit different. But I think that's probably interesting for industry. And also, if people have questions, this is the time to throw them out there.
No, absolutely. And I think I just throw out as part of tack onto that last part of the conversation, at least in the Army, like Army leaders aren't necessarily, trained to accept a lot of risk. They're not necessarily trained in technology. And so, that education component, while difficult, we got to do our best, right? Because that's exactly who is making those decisions. And we want them to be able to make the most informed decisions as possible. And we got to be able to get that, knowledge transfer there so that we can make that right level of decision with the right amount of risk, with the right decision or with the right technology decisions. So to your question there, Ben, the software factory, for us, it's a little bit more unique of a model in the sense that we're trying to look at a holistic kind of soldier concept, and everything we've kind of talked about from our perspective is putting the soldier at the center, whether it's the service member that's the developer or the service member that's the user. And so as we're finding that hidden tech talent that we talked about at the earlier panel out across the entire Army, and pulling it in, it's how do we find that balance of collaboration with contracted subject matter experts, SMEs, with soldiers and service member involvement, so that we can eventually get to a point where we have that enablement at a level where we can send out autonomous service member teams, because we may not always have the ability to decide whether or not we want contracted balance teams, civilian teams, et cetera. And so it's that long-term vision and approach to get to that level of service member involvement.
I wouldn't say there's much of a difference other than just mission. I think we've all kind of iterated off of one another. When we started Kessel Run, we had no idea what it could turn into. And it's turned to something beautiful. You look at most of the panelists that have been up here, and they're, it's a lot of the government folks that were alumni from the original Kessel Run team. And that goes to speak to a lot of, one, the leadership there, but then just the kind of the right harvesting of talent that came out of that. And so I think, we took Section 31 and iterated on what we had learned from Kessel Run, and Army Software Factory had iterated off of what they saw in LA and in Boston. And then, Colorado Springs with Space Camp and Platform One, they have iterated on all of that as well. So it's just different iterations. And I think that we're all still very early, but we're learning from each other. And some people have worked with industry a lot better than others. And so we can learn about how to bring those in. I think, there's a lot of different organizations like AFWorks and DIU and the SIBRS programs that are helping. And I think that's improving. Maybe we're plateauing a little bit with COVID and not being able to get to things like this. But I think things like this are a catalyst to that. And so I think being able to bring in industry and bring in things like SIBRS to be able to work really closely is improving. So there's not many differences other than we have a little bit of a different mission and continuously improving upon one another.
Yeah, I came from industry before this, and it seems to me that it is especially challenging to navigate the broad number of organizations within DoD. So I guess if Christina or Wade, if you have thoughts on, are there big differences when you're working between Army or Navy or Air Force or Space Force or any of the others? How does your work on some of the, with Army and some of these other organizations differ when you get into other, the complexity of that broader bureaucracy?
Sure. I mean, I'll start and Wade can continue. I mean, most of my experience is just with the Army, but like Davis said, I mean, it's all similar. It's just different mission. At the end of the day, what industry wants to do is help you achieve your mission, and we're there to do it with our products, but we want to work as a team and collaborate to help with that mission. So whether it's Army, whether it's Navy, yeah, we're here to support the DoD. At the end of the day, our companies also just support anyone's missions, whether you're in the private sector, we're there to help and collaborate.
Yeah, I think really it's taken what we learned with one set of customers. So what we learned with SOCOM, we can then bring over to the Army and help them, solve some problems, or, vice versa. And so it's really, again, with the industry having reach across everybody, they get a different picture. And I think they can be very helpful in trying to point people in the right direction, right? It might not be their product, but at least they can give them a sense of the technology or capability to go that way.
Cool. And just on that topic, kind of into more lightning round kind of style questions, what is the most exciting stuff you're seeing out there today? I mean, what do you think is going to be the most game-changing thing for the military in the next 5 to 10 years?
So I'll go with the autonomy capabilities, right? Pick whatever flavor that you want, but the ability to train things to that level, to build trust from leadership in those capabilities, and then employ them, and then having the software and the hardware and the total capability to make that happen.
I guess I'll go next. No, I like Wade's answer, right, with automation and human in the loop, and what's the right balance there. And I think that's going to obviously have a lot to kind of like sort itself out as we all kind of want to do the right thing moving forward. I think taking that, as well as the component of increasing the ability for systems to be able to collaborate and talk to one another, right? As we think about this idea of open standard and being able to, for what a lot of the, entire DoD service programs are trying to do, right? With JADC2, with Project Convergence. And I think being able to, achieve a higher level of crosstalk and automation is really just going to be a game changer for all the services. And so how we're able to move forward into that space is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, Wade and Jason kind of took my answer, but same thing. It's just, AI ML is a buzzword, but it really is cool to see how we are working towards working with the humans versus our systems. We are always going to have a play, but we want things to be autonomous so we can be more productive. Like you guys said, we have a mission to achieve, and we want our machines to go and do that so we can stay behind and continue to succeed and build and automate, behind the scenes.
I'll take a little bit of a different approach. Obviously, technology is there, and it's going to continue to improve. I think just our acquisitions processes is going to get a lot more better. I'm hopeful, at least, that it gets there. And I think that as we continue to grow, that means our defense industrial base will improve. That means the rest of startups and other technology will continue to get into the DoD a lot better. AML, sure, but we can't even deliver software well across the DoD. So I'm hopeful that comes in, but I'm just hopeful we have better ways to get software out to our users. And we've proven that it can work. We've proven that we can do it on a fairly large scale, at least for various subset missions. But I think writ large we can do it a lot better. So I'm hopeful that we just see that. We just see better software that can run a lot more securely.
And hopefully interoperable across all the services. And the other thing that always gets tied in there is how do we make sure that we're matching up all the data streams that we have and interconnecting those using, and I think that's the other area of complexity that happens when we talk about adding, more industry partners, making sure that those are all synced up and integrated in the ways that we're going to need to do for future warfare. So.
Yeah, the JADC2 mission is so important. I don't think it all needs to come together as one autonomous system. Just being able to work together, having just being able to have open APIs like that. That's a simple thing that we can all do to be able to work together across services and across systems.
Cool. I think, was there a question back there? Okay. If there are questions, this is the time. So yeah, go for it, sir. I think just talking, we'll repeat it back. Yeah.
This panel was super enlightening, so when I say I appreciate you guys. It's interesting because I feel like in California, they tried the agile capabilities, and they were turning social workers into product managers. And so there's this huge skills gap. I've had sit downs with tons of generals, and less than 30% of the military has the capability for the battlefield of the future, or the skills for the battlefield of the future. So that worries me beyond just interoperability. So from your perspective, Captain, how are you seeing ways to upskill folks? Is that entry learning, it's that industry, because industry comes at a price and a premium. So what we realized was like, hey, we can't just have social workers be product managers because that skill set doesn't transfer sometimes, right? So what I'm seeing globally is the ability to procure software faster, and so much that as a GovTech entrepreneur and investor, it's not attractive to work in this market. It's more attractive to work in the other market because we lack the digital maturity and the skill set to maintain those capabilities. So I'm interested in how do we get the skills beyond the interoperability? How do we make the market more attractive such that we want to come in and create those 10x markets, those capabilities, the heart of those capabilities? But I'm really seeing the skills gap as something that's not making this market attractive. And it's making other markets, be it APAC or EMEA, more attractive because they have the skills.
So questions about skill set, how do we upskill the workforce, and how do we make government a more attractive marketplace? Because obviously there's a pretty big market outside government. Why, I hear this a lot actually. Why would I even go in and work with the government? It's going to be so much pain to do it, right?
Global governments are capturing our mind share and they're deploying the capabilities
right.
faster.
Well, and that's the other thing. There's a good line in the 2018 NDS that I always bring up, which is basically, to be able to, all these new technologies are coming out there. And if we're not fast enough, our adversaries are definitely going to implement them before us. So, yeah.
That we've seen just multiple shifts in the DoD. 90s and early 2000s, we saw a shift where, we got rid of a ton of service members. We gave a ton of capability and money to large system integrators. And so we said, we don't want anything. We just want to manage products. We just want to manage contracts. And so the government really just became leaders in program management. And that's shifting now again to where the government is becoming more technical. They're starting to understand, technology a lot better and get a lot more understanding across what the industry looks like. But also our users are getting a lot more smarter on what the future can look like and what the possibility is. They're getting a feel for what good software can be and what continuous delivery really looks like. So I would say it's happening. We're upskilling, but it can't happen overnight. We're skilling folks through different boot camps on how to be a product manager, on how to be a developer. And one of the, I think, most important forms of a product team jobs on a product team is the designer. Just being able to have that spokesperson within a balanced product team is really important. And so that's increasing. We're lacking a lot of product leadership within government. And so, to one of the earlier panels with Austin Bryan, just talking about how we keep people and how we train them, it's really difficult. For people that are in this world, it's attractive to get out. But I think if we're able to keep people and we're able to grow leaders in this space that understand where we're going and what we're doing, we can continue to get a lot better and be able to field a lot more capabilities, like you said. But it is a process.
One other point on it, just because this comes up a lot, and I think there's kind of a little bit of a misconception, because I do see, so number one, it's not all about the money. And I think that's a really important point to make, because there are a lot of people who are very excited about coming into these jobs because they're mission focused people. And so those people are out there, and they will, if you give them a powerful mission and they're able to make a difference, that's going to 100%, outweigh, the financial part of it, especially because, if it's, to the extent that we're bringing in government civilians, and even on our contract teams, those jobs pay okay. They're not going to pay you necessarily what you're going to get at, Silicon Valley, if you're a developer, but the mission is going to be more powerful. And so I think we've done a pretty good job of starting to bring those in. And I think as we grow the ecosystem, we keep on bringing people in. And we've talked about the cross-pollination that's already happening. So I'm hopeful. We need to continue to scale that out, though. And so I think that's definitely, hopefully, something that we'll see continue to grow. But
it's definitely not all about pay. That's for sure. It's about feeling safe and where you're working, being appreciated, being valued, and that all comes with growing leaders and how to lead a modern workforce. And so, when I say attractive, that's what I mean, is being valued. Do we really, I mean, if we can pay people just fine, but where do they want to work? Do they want to work for a mission that's delivering and impacting the world? Or do they want, to go do, I don't know, insurance capabilities? I don't know.
No, I definitely agree with what both of the gentlemen just said. And I mean, it's difficult, but we can be taught. And I think one of the unique positions that we're in right now, though, is, for the majority of the senior leaders that have grown up through, through service already, don't necessarily have the same understanding of technology that our junior most soldiers have, where they were coding in high school, or they run servers on the side on the weekend for their gaming systems, or whatever it might be. And so you have this, inverted knowledge gap that really, I think, exactly to what we're talking about. If you give these individuals who have a sense of purpose, who want to serve, right, you give them the space to do it, the culture where they want to feel like they have an outlet to use their skills in the right way, we'll be able to drive that, information upwards of how we appropriately use those skills, how we appropriately prepare for the future, and what that might look like. So, I mean, that for us, that's really what we're trying to do is pilot this in a way that helps us inform the Army and helps us better understand.
Cool. Getting into the balanced teams, because that's something that also comes up a lot. I think a lot of people have questions. I get them a lot when I'm talking to industry about how we work as an organization, what that structure is, what our UX process is. So I'm interested both from the software factory organization side, if you guys want to speak to what your processes are there. And then I think also there's an interesting question of what that future makeup should look like from the industry side, because we're going at a very different approach than traditional acquisitions, where we're doing government-led software development, integrating industry in many times into the product teams more directly. So I'm interested in what you guys think is the right future approach to that.
Yeah, so I think going forward, I mean, certainly, say Army Software Factory, right, where they're trying to build that bench of green suiters or government folks, absolutely 100% on board with that. Going down the road as they build that bench and they grow naturally, some kind of augmentation with contractors or industry is probably inevitable. Not to build the bench bigger, but to continue bringing that expertise in that's coming fresh from the industry side, and so that they continually inject new ideas to it. But I don't think that we're going to get to a point where it's going to be a 1-for-1 or a side-by-side kind of thing.
And I think we don't know what the answer is yet. That's why, we're here on this panel. We were listening to the 5 panels before, and it's how do we get to that point where we're working more cohesively? I don't know. I wish we could tell you. That's why we're talking about it, and we're trying to work towards that. But that's why we need to collaborate, and we need to collaborate early. Industry, again, wants to help the DoD, the Army specifically, achieve their mission. And we can only do that when we start working with you from the beginning. On the previous panel, 5 panels of the day, they were talking about outcomes. We don't want to respond to a white paper and a list of requirements. We want to work with you on your solution. We do want to provide outcomes, and our products can do that. But yeah, we're products, we're selling products, but at the end of the day, it's to achieve that mission.
So we, at Section 31, we have a few balanced teams. And what I mean by that is, like I said, a PM, a designer, and we also do paired programming. So we have then we have a few pairs of developers, and that's for a lot of our app teams on our platform and cyber security side. We pair program there as much as possible and what makes sense. And we have an active duty military or civilian on each team as well. Across product and platform. And so, but the team consists of military, civilian, contractor, FFRDC. We have a whole gamut of people. And so the balanced team from a different sense is that it is industry, it is government. And really what that looks like is we're all badgeless. We're coming in, we're working together as a team to achieve a mission. And I think that's one of the biggest things where, industry can come alongside us. Come help us achieve these missions. We're not going to be able to scale this large with the whole DoD. I think that government-led development, meaning we can have a government PM, but the rest of the team can be industry. You guys can come alongside. We don't have the expertise on some of these algorithms for space capabilities. We need to bring those on, but join our teams. Come join our mission and be part of us, and come alongside to enable our folks. But we're not going to have doctorates in how to do orbital dynamics. We need that contracted out. So we need you guys to come alongside us and enable us and assist us into achieving those outcomes, because we certainly can't do it together. And so really, I think what that comes down to is a matter of humility, but also on the government side, having better contracts, taking responsibility and ownership of what those contracts look like, because we can't just do the same thing that we've been doing with the poor written contracts where they're all open-ended and you can just fit whatever you want in them. That's certainly not the future. Some people like to run a bus through their contracts. I think we need to scope and be very specific about what we want as the government.
Yeah, I think it's a balance, right? You need it to be both beneficial and not harmful to both sides, and so it's definitely a balance that you got to strike with regards to the contracts. For the teams themselves, we went out and did a little bit of research, took a few notes, so they look a little similar, right? So we've got PMs and designers that start with pairing, so that they can continue that enablement component, and then software engineers that do paired programming, and so that's pretty standard for us as well on the Army Software Factory side. But one of the, exactly to Wade and Christina's point, is there's always that balance with a contractor side as well, right? And what we're not trying to do is recreate all COTS solutions from scratch. Like, there are reasons to create new things, greenfield applications or whatever that might be. But this is just Vito didn't say it earlier today, right? This is just another club in the golf bag. So that's what we hope to achieve with it.
Maybe we get a little bit at why we have balanced teams and why we have government-led teams. It's not just there to say we did or just to enable folks, but we have it because we're able to bring autonomy as low as we possibly can. So those teams are so much more autonomous than if we have the level, a little bit more of a command and control structure at, let's say, an ML level, right? We bring the decision making as low as possible because we believe that they know the best. So our PMs, typically CGOs or young NCOs, they know what the mission needs because they're working there with the user. In ML, in FGO is at a level that just doesn't touch the user, and I think they need to be there to enable those teams. But and so we're not throwing requirements over the fence and saying delivers this thing and then it comes back, oh, it's not right, and so we have to go back and change something, and it costs millions of dollars in time, and ultimately then we don't get what we need. So the balanced team is there to be able to accommodate what the user needs and also deliver a product a lot faster.
Cool. There's a question that I'm not sure I fully understand, so maybe if one of you understands it, you can address it. Talking about diseconomies of scale, I assume they're talking about challenges. I guess maybe the better way to approach this is in terms of how we acquire things and how we go about purchasing. How do we make those? Or maybe the better way to ask it is, in terms of future platform decisions and when you're thinking about the tools and technologies you need, how are you going about thinking about what those should be? And how do you guys work? Like within Kessel Run, we've developed a process where we're working really closely with our product lines. We do quarterly growth boards to try and evaluate what the technologies are that we have and where we want to go. And then we go out and basically put those calls out to industry. And we've been working on continuing to kind of hone that process. Not a perfect process, but I don't know if you guys have thoughts on how that process works from your side.
Well, this just made me think of what was said on an earlier panel about how, it's about continuous delivery. That was the main subject of the last panel. And, we have to realize that failing, although that sounds like a bad word, when we're in this time of innovation, you don't want to put all this money and time into one solution. And then when it doesn't work, you think, well, I already invested all the time and money. We keep going for years and years until you lost all your money and all your time. We need to get to a point where, you know, you acquire some software or you work with the industry, work with us, see what works, see what doesn't. It's okay if it doesn't work, because again, the goal is to work with you on achieving your mission. So if it doesn't work, you know, after 6 months, great, go back to the drawing board. That's better than investing all your time and money. 10 years later, it doesn't work. And then now you have to go back to the drawing board because you just lost 10 years.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, just in terms of that question, I think we are focused on doing more. You know, we have a team that basically we call ourselves doing agile acquisitions, and what that means is more modular contracting, smaller contracts, shorter contract terms, so that we can actually evaluate and make sure that the contract is being successfully, you know, acted on. And so I think that's probably the best way to answer the question. Is a core part of how we're thinking about this is how do we acquire things and make sure that we're validating the success, and then scale those partnerships that are successful, rather than acquiring it and then three, 4, 5 years down the line, you say, okay, well, this is successful, at which point sometimes that technology is already obsolete.
Yeah. The question that we're seeing here, you know, how does this play into buying big prime versus small business in relation to smaller organizations and larger organizations? And I think really that kind of gets into, is this program, you know, an ACAT 1 program? Is it a program of record, or is it not? And they're able to not have as much acquisition process that they have to adhere to. But it's also assuming that if you are a big organization, that you have to go to a big prime to be able to deliver a big system. And I don't think that's true. I don't think, but also the big primes, you know, I think they need to change a little bit. They need to adapt. And we've seen it done in the past. Typically, they're used to getting big systems and delivering those big systems and dealing with a lot of hardware. You know, software is eating the world, and I think we need to change the way that our defense industrial base operates with us. We've seen it done successfully a few different times, and I think that it's possible, but there is a level of adaptation that's needed across the large SIs.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, so Kessel Run, like, you know, we're moving towards the software acquisition pathway, which is, you know, much shorter term, you know, based with that focus on how do we do this in a different way than we've traditionally required large systems. So I think that's hopefully the future for software.
Yeah, and I think it's really about the capability, right? And these days, the incredible thing with software, you know, to get the best or the newest, like, strongest capability out there, it doesn't necessarily have to be a big prime. Some of them have great capabilities and offerings that we're going to always want, but there's also just this, you know, scrappy startup that might have something that's truly incredible. And so some of the things that we've been talking about all day, though, right, is how do we make it easier to be able to work with the right components, whether it's a big prime or whether it's a startup, right? And so creating those pathways for startups is just so incredibly important, whether it's through SIBRs, whether it's you know, reducing the contracting timelines that it takes to get things on contract. You know, I don't think I've heard anybody talk about it today because maybe it's not the most fun topic, but resourcing side, right? We talk about like having to palm for money. For those who aren't familiar with like the FIDEP, planning 3 to 7 years out is not a simple thing, especially when you're talking about agile. And I think, you know, one of the unique things that people are starting to lean forward into is the idea of a software color of money, which hopefully will help get at some of that agility and kind of like, you know, reducing that planning timeline or window that we have to lock ourselves into.
Cool. So we don't have too much time. I wanted to just give everyone an opportunity to sort of closing remarks, anything that you want people to know, how to get in touch with you if they're interested in working with you, what types of things you're looking to work with people on, and close it up from there.
Yeah. So again, just appreciate the opportunity to participate in this and be back in Austin for a couple of days. You know, I think it's an incredible time right now for not only the Army, but the services in general, with the leadership that is all in on modernizing the capabilities, leading with technology, leading with better methods to do things, getting after the software problem set. And so a lot of energy, a lot of good support there. And I think it's just something we need to capitalize on going forward, both as the government side and industry side, so that we don't blow the opportunity that we might not get for a long time.
I think for you know, for me, it's really just a part, or being able to take part in all the incredible work that's going on. I really appreciate that. To all the industry partners taking part today, the DoD partners that are taking part and made the trip out here, especially during the trying times. Like, just really appreciate it. And for us, the Army Software Factory, it's all about that collaboration. Where to reach out to us, I throw out a little opportunity here. armyfuturescommand.com/software factory. It's where we can bring you in as far as, if you're an industry partner looking to find a way to connect with us. If you're a soldier out there and you're interested in joining our team, right, you can apply there too. So we've got a lot of great information there. But yeah, just really thanks to everybody for coming out.
Yeah, and like Jason said, this is a great opportunity for us to collaborate here on this panel, networking outside the panels. So thank you to Capital Factory for having us, Army Software Factory and IBM for hosting this track for us. Like, this is the opportunity for us to get together, especially post-COVID, to collaborate and see how we can work together moving forward. Like all of us have been talking about on these sessions, we want to collaborate, we want to innovate.
Thanks for having us. I never really thought I'd be here. I certainly, I think as most of us in the government suffer from some sort of imposter syndrome, that like we don't really deserve to be here, and we don't feel qualified or like we should be here. But it's certainly an honor. I think this is something that's really important. If we don't get this right, if we don't figure out how to bring in better technology, if we don't figure out how to just deliver software, better working software, the mission is at stake. And I think that's something that we can all align on, no matter if, you're one software factor or the other, or you're one technology or the other. What's at stake here is a lot of our freedoms and a lot of people's lives, a lot of, the simple things that we have, like space assets, are extremely important. And if we don't come together, if we don't get a lot better at delivering software and being a lot more secure, then there's a lot at stake. And so really, I just say that hopefully everyone continues to be more mission focused, and continues to assist the government in improving the way we get software to our users.
Yeah, so we're over time, but thanks to all the panelists. Thank you to the Capital Factory, and thank you to Army Software Factory. And hopefully we'll have more of these types of things at future events. If you're interested in getting in touch with Kessel Run, kesselrun.af.mil. But looking forward to continuing this discussion in the future. Thanks, everyone.